Hey everyone! A new update just dropped in the game, and one of the most interesting new items is the underwater scooter. It's fast, it works in water, and it can even reach the deepest parts of the ocean. But today I had a really strange idea. What if we try to combine this new scooter with other objects using the Nanoassembler? Can we create something completely new? Maybe a yellow NPC scooter made from a melon. Maybe a combat scooter with weapons. Or maybe some weird hybrid that the developers never even planned. Today we're going to run several experiments with the Nanoassembler and the new scooter. And the craziest experiment will be at the end. We'll try mixing the scooter with every fruit we can find. Maybe that's how we'll finally create something completely new. So let's start the experiments. Let's start with the most obvious idea. Sometimes when you combine NPCs with objects in the Nanoassembler, you can create really strange hybrids. So the first question is simple. What happens if we mix a melon with the new scooter? Could we get something like a living scooter NPC? Maybe even a yellow scooter creature? Let's test it. First, we place the melon inside the Nanoassembler. Now we add the underwater scooter. If the game allows these two objects to merge, we might see something very interesting. Let's activate the machine. The Nanoassembler starts working, and now let's see the result. And nothing unusual happens. The scooter remains a normal scooter, and the melon just appears separately. So unfortunately, we did not create a melon scooter NPC. But that was only the first experiment. Alright, if melon doesn't work, let's try another idea. What if we combine the scooter with weapons? Imagine a scooter that can shoot. That would be a completely new type of combat vehicle. Let's test it. First we place the scooter in the Nanoassembler. Now we add a pistol. If this works, we might see a scooter with built-in weapons. Activating the machine, let's see the result. And once again, the pistol just drops next to the scooter. No weapon scooter. Maybe the pistol is too small. Let's try something bigger. Now we add several rifles. Scooter plus multiple weapons. Activating the Nanoassembler again. And the result is exactly the same. The rifles appear next to the machine, and the scooter stays completely normal. So creating a weapon scooter using the Nanoassembler doesn't work either. But now I want to try something even stranger. Sometimes weird things happen in this game when you combine many objects at once. So let's try mixing the scooter with every fruit we can find. Melon, pumpkin, apple, and a few more fruits. If the game accidentally combines any properties, maybe we'll get some kind of strange hybrid vehicle. Let's start the Nanoassembler. The machine begins working, and now we wait for the result. The fruits come out, the scooter comes out, and once again, nothing changed. Even when mixing it with multiple fruits, the scooter stays exactly the same. So it looks like fruits also can't merge with the scooter. Even though none of our experiments created a hybrid scooter today, the results are still really interesting. Because every time we test something like this, we learn a little bit more about how the game systems actually work. For example, today we discovered something important. The Nanoassembler can merge certain types of objects, but vehicles like the underwater scooter appear to behave differently. Instead of combining with NPCs, weapons, or fruits, the scooter simply stays as its original object. That might mean the developers specifically limited what can merge with vehicles. But that doesn't mean there are no strange combinations hidden somewhere in the game. In fact, experiments like these are often how players discover the weirdest secrets. Sometimes one specific object combination suddenly produces something unexpected. Maybe not melon plus scooter. Maybe not scooter plus weapons. But what if there are other objects we haven't tested yet? For example, what if we tried combining the scooter with tools instead of fruits? Or maybe with mechanical objects? Or even with parts of other vehicles? Sometimes the most surprising results happen when you combine items that seem completely unrelated. Another interesting possibility is that the Nanoassembler might react differently depending on how many objects you put inside it. Maybe one item doesn't work. Maybe two items don't work. But maybe 5 or 6 objects at once could trigger something unusual. And that's exactly why these experiments are so fun. Because every time you try something new, there's always a chance you'll discover something nobody else has seen before. Also, the new scooter itself opens a lot of possibilities for future experiments. Since it can travel deep underwater, we could test what happens when we use the Nanoassembler at the bottom of the ocean. Maybe the environment could affect how objects interact. Or maybe certain combinations only work underwater. That would actually be a really interesting mechanic. Another idea is to try combining the scooter with some of the other new items from the update. For example, tools, or environmental objects, or even living creatures. Because sometimes the most unexpected results appear when you mix vehicles with NPC-type objects. So today we didn't create a melon scooter, we didn't create a weapon scooter, and we didn't create a fruit scooter either. But we did confirm something important. The scooter behaves very differently from most other items when used with the Nanoassembler. And that means there could still be hidden combinations that nobody has discovered yet. So now I want to ask you something. What experiment should we try next? Should we try combining the scooter with tools? Maybe with creatures? Or maybe with completely random objects? Write your craziest ideas in the comments. Because the next experiment might finally create something truly strange. And who knows, maybe one day we will actually manage to create the first real scooter NPC. And that would be one of the weirdest things ever built in this game. But there's one more thing that makes this experiment even more interesting. Sometimes in sandbox games like this, certain objects are coded in very different ways. Some items are considered simple props, some are tools, some are NPCs, and some are vehicles. And vehicles usually follow completely different rules inside the game engine. So the underwater scooter might actually belong to a special category of objects that the Nanoassembler simply cannot modify. But that also means something important. If developers ever decide to expand the Nanoassembler system in future updates, vehicles could become one of the most interesting things to experiment with. Imagine if one day the game allows vehicles to merge with other objects. You could create a scooter with built-in weapons, a scooter with tools, a scooter that carries an NPC inside it as part of the model, or even something completely insane, like a living scooter creature that moves on its own. That would open a whole new level of experimentation. And updates like this often start small. First, developers add a new vehicle, then players begin testing it, and eventually someone discovers a combination that nobody expected. So even though today's experiments didn't create a hybrid scooter, they actually show us something important about how the Nanoassembler works. And honestly, that just makes me want to keep experimenting even more. Because sometimes the most interesting discoveries in this game happen completely by accident. So if you have any crazy ideas about what we should try next with the Nanoassembler and the new scooter, write them in the comments. Maybe your idea will be the one that finally breaks the system and creates something completely new. And if that happens, we'll definitely test it in the next experiment video.